We have a special guest in the studio tonight, James Gardner, and he's coming from Digital, and he's going to speak to us all about digital cinema.
As opposed to analog cinema?
As opposed to analog cinema. Well, I don't know.
What's the difference?
What do you call a cinema that isn't analog, I suppose, or isn't digital, I suppose? James, welcome to Tech Talk Radio. Thanks for coming in tonight.
Thanks, Dr. Hunt.
Now, you heard some comments that we made a few weeks ago, and I think you emailed me and you said, guys, you've almost got it right. You're coming close. You're sort of approaching at a particular angle, but you haven't quite hit the nail on the head there with what's going on.
So I thought I'd come in and clear it up and tell you why sometimes you're looking at a great presentation in the cinema and sometimes you're looking at something that's less than perfect.
Well, I'm glad you've come in. Do you just want to explain to everybody what it is you do and who you work for?
I have a company called Digital Proprietary Limited, and it's a company that develops cinema technology or technology for cinemas, specifically going digital. We have another company called DCN, which was doing what's called the VPF for the independents in Australia.
All acronyms here.
I'll get on to VPF in the morning. There's a bit of a history lessons here. I'll get straight into it because there's a lot to say. There used to be the studios in Hollywood got together and they put a committee together and they came up with what's called the DCI standard, Digital Cinema Initiative Standard.
Good. Yes.
DCImovies.com if you want to have a look at all the documents and everything to do with that. And that was basically how to move the industry into digital. Now,
is that a bit like how Lucasfilm have their THX standard and how, what are the other ones? SMPTE have their screen standards and all that sort of stuff?
It's similar. It's like SMPTE, but it was for the cinema industry. Right?
Okay.
And it was an initiative specifically for the cinema industry going into digital. Anyway, that happened and everyone started going forward, but going to digital meant you have to buy all this equipment for the exhibitor. It cost a lot of money. The exhibitor basically said, why would I spend all this money to upgrade my equipment so you can save money on giving me films? Because instead of giving me these $3,000 pieces of film, you're giving me a hard drive you can reuse.
So the exhibitor being the cinema?
The cinema.
Yep. So the cinema gets rid of, or they retire their old projector.
That's right.
And replace it with this hard drive and basically a big TV projector, really, isn't it?
Well, it is a cinema projector, specifically designed for cinema.
Yeah,
it's a big cinema projector, DCI, made by TI.
And they can play up to 4K resolutions and stuff,
they can.
Which is twice the resolution that we get on television set, high definition.
And anyway, so then what's this thing called the virtual print fee came into existence, which stands for virtual print because they're not getting a print anymore, they're getting digital, and because they're buying the equipment to save the studios money, they would reimburse them a fee to help them pay for this equipment.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So this big virtual print thing happened around the world and you had to go through all these sing and dancing sort of specifications or proof that you could do it because back in those days it was very hard because all this leading edge standards that we're talking about was all like theoretical and everyone's been developing their little head off for the last 10 years.
It sounds a bit like 3D where there are many standards and no one's adopted any one particular one.
Well, 3D was a bastard child of the DCI thing that happened.
See, it's all interwoven, isn't it?
That's right. Because we went digital, 3D became possible, but it was sort of a tack on. And also 3D was a little bit there to help encourage people to go digital because you couldn't do 3D unless you went digital. Right, so it was another sort of all work together to work, for the studios.
But you can do 3D with film, though, can't you?
Oh, you can, not that you would want to.
You wouldn't want to. It's a gutsy thing for a left eye and a right eye to be sync off film.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very
I'll take your word for it because I know nothing about the technology at all.
Anyway, so in Australia, we have it's called it's a company that was put together by the major chains, which is Hoyts, Village, Greater Union, etc.
Yep.
Called DCIPA, and they have achieved the DCI contracts have been signed, and they're building up to that now, which basically means that there's a company which represents them in the service side. They're installing as many digital cinemas as they can, as fast as they can, right? But what that actually means is that all the cinema chains out there at the moment, because this is happening, they've stopped spending any money maintaining their film projectors. So they're falling apart.
Right.
So
why would you maintain something that's going to become redundant?
Absolutely. But that's also meant that if you get into a cinema which has digital, the presentation is beautiful. If you get into a cinema which has got the old film still going, which is probably falling apart, you get unsatisfied presentations commonly now.
So film projection is really going to go into the enthusiast sort of category, like the Astor, where you get those passionate people who are... film is everything to them, if you know what I mean.
Yes. The
commercial guys are going to go digital because it's cost effective.
Yes.
To a degree.
Well, it's very cost effective to a degree for them. Now I'd like to lead you on to some of the realistic and hard-edged realities of going digital.
All right.
Okay. If you look at, I make a website called CineTechGeek.com.
CineTechGeek.com.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Now on that website, I've made many videos. I'm a bit of a video caster myself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, in one of the last ones I made, which is something I recorded from what's called CinemaCon in the US, which is the biggest conference for cinema in the world. They're all around the world, but that's the main one because it's right next to Hollywood and Las Vegas. All right. And one of the guys there, I've forgotten his name. He's the third one down in the. He's from ScreenDigest.com or .org. He was doing a talk about how far we've gone to digital, and in 2013, 75% of all cinemas in the world, according to the the trend, will be digital. That's
not far away. It's
no,
12 to 24 months away, really.
That's right. That's right. And then there's another guy called Jonathan Fyfe of NATO, which is the National Association of Independent Cinemas in the US. Then dropped a bomb saying in 2013 he believes that Hollywood will stop making film completely. Right.
That's a gutsy call.
Wow.
I know. If you look at the graphs, it's theoretically true. I think it'll go a little longer, but the thing is, it's not a very far away. And well, if you're not digital, you better be building up to your budget to build up to your purchase very soon now. And I can also believe that this is the case because our work, because we do a lot of selling of our software, because we sell our digital software to India. And the word from India is they believe that they will stop using film within a year and a half as well. So the little mice that's speaking into my ear from my industry people that I talk to, and film's going to end pretty quick. And when it ends, it's going to be where is it?
See, I can see that there would be a place for film for the purists and the people that like film because it's film, but for everybody else, I'm probably naive in my thinking that I can't understand why a digital distribution wouldn't be cheaper for everybody because you've got so much less overhead in terms of shipping physical film around the world.
Yes, and that's why a lot of people, there's some people think it'll happen very quickly when it happens because there is a massive saving.
But presumably there's a big upfront cost in the initial conversion to digital.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes. You're talking about anywhere between $60,000 to $100,000 per screen.
Which is a lot of money if you're a small company and you run a little independent movie theatre down the road.
That's right. So if you're a fourplex...
And there's no subsidies from any of the film houses or anything like that?
That's what the VPF was about.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no, there's no subsidies.
So the poor little operators, the independents out there that don't have the big bucks like the big chains do, are going to be struggling to find that amount of cash to do an upgrade for their cinema. And what are they going to show if there's no film?
Well, there was a VPF that was going to be done for the independents, but that's been put on hold, and I'm not allowed to talk about it because I'm connected with the company which has been in the federal court case, which you mentioned the other week.
We had it in the news. That's right. Yeah.
And so we'll just skip that a bit. But yes, we hope as a representing DCN to achieve the VPF or get a path to the VPF as soon as possible because it may hurt the independents if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd say there'd be a lot of independents out there, especially in rural centres, not so much in the cities, but, the small country guys.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons, like, I do my CineTechGeek, the reason I just did my podcast, etc., because many years ago I looked back, because I'm an IT type person working in the industry which is going from something very different. Like, we're talking about people who are used to cogs and wheels and stuff, and when it breaks... that wheel's broken. We'll call someone. We get it fixed. These days, it's like a car, right? You get a really modern day car, and you drive it, and something goes wrong, and you open the bonnet, and you look in,
and you close the bonnet.
Well, no, there's usually there's a lot about 3 yellow places you can touch.
That's right. They colour code what is user serviceable, don't they? These days.
That's right, and that's what it's becoming to them too. So they're completely out of their depth because before they could either fix it themselves, and a lot of the independents did because that's their passion to make film work and the mechanics of how film work. That's what their passion was. But now it's driving a car they can't touch because they just don't have the ability to do it. And that's like, you want to talk about how going digital has affected the industry. It has turned the industry on its head in that sense. The people who used to service it are trying to learn it as fast as they can, but unfortunately, most of them don't have a chance. It is just totally different. We're talking about very old people in their 40s and 50s and 60s who were usually fixed projectors. So the industry is going through a massive change. And
this is at all levels?
Well, we're talking about taking care of the equipment and how the process works of putting pictures on screen, yes.
Yeah.
But otherwise it's working the same way it always has.
So what's that going to mean in terms of the quality of the experience for people going to the cinema? We've seen the decline in the quality of the loss of the projectionist art, if you like. The film-based presentation quality is getting worse and worse, and problems don't get noticed and problems don't get fixed. But if you're saying that no one at the moment understands the digital technology either, does that mean that we're going to have problems with that too, that also are not going to get fixed, and that we're going to suffer from poor quality there as well?
Well, strangely enough, I would say the quality is going to improve a lot, mainly because there's no humans involved. All right? It's completely computerised from now on. If one of these systems, they're so monitored, if there's a problem with them, the systems will report problems and park themselves, and that screen will go off screen and they'll lose those sessions. But the systems are so clever, they'll, if you've got trained technicians, you can log into all the systems remotely, analyse them, see what's going wrong, and you dispatch an engineer to go and fix it. So what I'm saying is that things will go wrong, but as a viewer, you won't see it, because those issues will happen outside of you. You won't be able to see that screen before it goes wrong. Do you understand? So otherwise they'll work perfectly, because they're completely mechanical now with the lens changes and everything. They're all perfect, all done by a computer. They happen the same every time. You're not going to get unfocused or anything like that anymore, because it's and computers don't make mistakes.
What about problems? You're saying like it automatically changes lenses and so on, things like that. What about what might be a minor technical thing, like a spot of dust on a lens that causes a dark spot on the screen? Problems like that.
That will theoretically happen, and that won't stop the session. It'll annoy, but if that happens and someone reports it, there will be someone who will go and fix it on the spot, because that's the sort of level of support they can do. Go wipe a lens, and the general manager will have the ability to do that. But to a degree, that's not very common, because most of the new cinema environments are much cleaner, and because there's no one actually crawling around up there anymore, they generally are cleaner, because they're not doing anything up there anymore. And they're usually clean environments anyway.
I was watching the movie show the other night with David and Margaret. Sorry, thank you for that. There's some new films coming out which are basically shot the old way, the old 4:3 boxy ratio. And they were saying on the movie show that chances are a lot of the cinemas won't be able to play that because it's the old ratio. Is that because they don't have lenses? Is that right, what they would say there?
No, I wouldn't say that's right. If you want to get real technico and boffing off a bit, generally a digital cinema projector can show what is it?
All the ratios, or
well, no, it's got a the full frame is 2048 by 1080, right? And whatever master format you like, if you're a HD or something, right, and you're 1920 by 1080, you would squeeze that into there and do a really good resize to make it look properly.
Yep.
If you were getting a 4:3, you'd just sit it in the middle and you'd resize it to sit into that frame, and there you go. And that's how it's generally done. The use of anamorphic lenses in digital cinema has been sort of abandoned. They looked at it for a little bit. Anamorphic lenses mean that the picture, as it's stored on the film or in the digital format, is not square pixels, so it's squashed, and it uses an anamorphic lens to stretch it out. Right? So that's where on traditional film like CinemaScope, etc., if you looked at CinemaScope film and you put it up to the light, the picture would be all squashed.
I didn't know that.
Right?
That's interesting.
And then you'd need the anamorphic lens to slide in to stretch it out so it's all square.
So the aspect ratio is correct when you look at it.
That's exactly right.
So, by not doing that, what you're doing is you're wasting resolution and you're wasting bandwidth by having black bars actually in the display device.
That's true. That is very correct. But it's, in my opinion, this is traditionally why they didn't do it, is anamorphic lenses are far from perfect, and the use of them inevitably actually made them more blurry than better.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? So you can get anamorphic lenses that good, but and lenses get tired and they wear out as well. So they've just decided to go away from that. They're just not used in digital cinema now. But now we've got 4K. If you want to go to that sort of thing, there's 4K. And if you want to talk about 4K is very uncommon in Australia. I don't think there's only been any 4K sold. And
so for the most part, digital cinema in Australia, you're watching a picture that's 2048 pixels wide, and what did you say, 1080 high, which is not that much different from your high definition television at home.
Well, to get geeky again, it's either 1998 by 1080, which is what's called flat, and that aspect ratio, or if it's scope, it's 2048 by 858 pixels. High, and that's the resolution you get to see on the screen, right? On those two, if you're looking, a scope is the wider picture.
So are we going to start seeing these larger formats come out in Australia, or is it
the larger projectors?
Yeah, or the 4K projectors. Yeah.
I say that would be yes, but statistically, if you look at the use of 4K and going into where they've done side by side tests, etc., if you're in any typical cinema in Australia, and you had a 2K and a 4K, and you're looking at the premium spot, you won't know you won't see the difference because the pixel per, there's the resolution that you can pick up from those distances you can only really pick up 2K. So having a 4K image doesn't give you any more sharpness.
So the 4K image would be sharper than the eye can detect. Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Yeah.
But if you have a really big screen, or if you put people really close to the screen, it makes a big difference.
So how bigger than most cinemas in Australia you're talking to get to that point?
Well, yes, most cinemas would only have 1 to 2 screens that big because usually that's you have the main thing coming out on your biggest screen. Like a typical cinema would have 1 to 2 if you're an 8 screen, you might have a really big screen, a medium screen, and lots of small screens. Mm-hmm. Because you're pumping the big releases in the bigger screens, and after the first week the numbers fall off, and then you push them into the little screens. Right, and that's how it generally goes. So the need for 4K projection, like even Barco said in one of their promotional materials, they only see 20% of cinemas needing 4K, if at all.
But I'm just blown away by this idea that the 2K format that you're going to see in almost every cinema is actually roughly equivalent, or in some cases, I think you said even less than the 1080p that we're watching on our LCDs at home.
Yeah, I know.
That's just extraordinary.
So when you go and see one of the 3D films,
and
it looks a lot better. When I say it looks a lot better, as you're saying, it's perceived better. Like, wow, that's pretty crisp and sharp and clear and all that sort of stuff. It's not that much different to what an HD stream is on your telly at home.
That's right.
If you had a really good TV at home, it could look just that good.
Well,
off Blu-ray.
Well, yeah. Well, in the cinema, they do triple flash, which basically means that for every eye, you see it flashed at you 3 times a second.
Yep.
Right. So, which equals up.
And your Sony Bravias do 300 hertz. The same sort of concept.
They probably do. I'm not sure if they go up to triple flash because the LCDs etc. aren't very good at changing rates that much. They have a transition problem when they change. You don't have that with DLP chips. What are
they? What are DLP chips?
Well, a DLP projector.
Yeah.
Okay. DLP is a type of chip made by TI, which has got those moving mirrors. You know those chips for the projector with the moving mirrors.
Oh, vaguely, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what's used in most of the projectors in Australia. Sony also makes something that's very similar, but it's not really sold in Australia. And basically, you've got a chip. They've got these what they call cinema grade ones, which are super high quality because you can buy DLP projectors over the shelf counter for
your home cinema projectors can use that. So digital light processing it's called. Yeah,
that's right. Well, they change. I think I saw once 10,000 times a second. Right?
Okay.
So that actually, if you're a technical person, that can actually get you down. If you work the maths, you can work out the actual color density or the how much color that can give you, depending on because you can only change so much per second. So it can tell you how many bits per second it can change. So which gives you the color capabilities. If you like, I know John would probably be interested in that. But that's why when you start to go into triple flash, you're cutting it up so much you actually lose a little bit of perceptual color, and especially with the if you've got active glasses, you can actually start seeing it, where you'll see banding in the blue skies.
Okay, it's a bit like a strobing in the old days, where you used to point a camera on the telly and it would ripple.
That's right.
Yeah, well,
so you're starting to see all that coming through.
But
what you see now with fast-moving action with those projectors is you see a kind of a rainbow in what should be just a black or a grey shadow.
You're talking about spinning wheel projectors there.
Oh, okay.
And that's because they actually have a wheel that spins past the single light. So to get the red, green and blue, they actually have 6-segment wheels which have other colours as well, but I can't really go into that right now. But that spins red, green and blue. As the red, green and blue passes the light source, the DLP then turns on and sends the red picture. Then the blue part comes and turns on and sends the blue picture. And that's why if you turn your head quickly, your eyes can pick up the different colours hitting the screen, and you get the rainbow effect on the edges.
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. I thought this was a simple thing, projection, but no, it's not. It's very complex.
But all DLP projectors are, of course, 3-chip projectors, so they do the light for every colour simultaneously.
Oh, okay, so they avoid that rainbow effect
That's
with
right.
the,
That's why
with
they're
the
very
professional
expensive.
ones. Okay.
And the main reason all this kit is so expensive is because the DCI specification specifies what's called FIPS 802. I forget the exact number, which is a military spec for what is used, for example, to protect weaponry launch codes. And that sort of protection was what's used for protecting films.
So that you can't take a copy of it
Yes, that's
off
right.
the hard disk at the
So it
cinema.
shows you how serious they are about this. So we're talking about, nuclear bomb sort of protection codes to show a film. And so that development has been exceptionally high, and it's why when it's taken such a long time.
The film houses would love that.
Well, they do.
Nothing for sneaking out apart from their little screener DVDs and all that sort of stuff when they do their movies. James, so you've sort of waylaid my fears in one respect. You're saying that the cinema experience theoretically is going to get better in the next little bit. For the operators of the cinemas, it's going to be interesting times in the next sort of 2 years.
Very interesting, yes.
Where are we going to be after that? What's going to the whole wash up of all this? Any ideas where, from a consumer's point of view, we're not going to notice anything, are we? The cinemas are still going to be there.
Yep.
But will we notice small people falling out of the game and more large, the big breed of cinema chains coming into being? Because maybe, what are we going to see?
That's a little bit. It's
crystal ball. I know. I like asking crystal ball questions.
That's potentially true. One could say big chains could see that this is an opportunity to pick up the small chains, because if they don't pick up the VPF, they have the VPF, when they move in, they can bring the VPF with them, which will then reduce the costing of them converting the cinema, which goes to the price of buying the cinema.
Like Bunnings coming in and buying out all the hardware shops, isn't it?
And it may happen, but I think the big cinemas really have their hands filled just doing this conversion.
Yeah.
And they're trying to manage the conversion and try and figure out the best ways to save costs. So unfortunately, this conversion, what it means is the art of projection is dead.
Ah.
Right.
So you're telling me my 16mm license that I got 20 years ago back at uni, it's not worth the paper it's printed on anymore?
No, unfortunately.
Oh, damn. There go the carbon arcs.
They'll be doing documentaries about you soon. So.
Look, when the ghosts... When the ghosts get up, it's non-existent.
We've started already. We're doing documentaries about him already, James. He doesn't know this, but yes.
But that's unfortunate. And I hope, and I expect some people will keep it going for the historical reasons of doing it, etc. But in terms of business-wise, it just doesn't make sense. The cost savings and where everything's going. So that really dictates what's going to happen to that era.
Film will become something for enthusiasts and aficionados, and for mainstream.
Yes.
For the cattle, people like me.
I look at it like what you look at when you see 16mm films or Super 8 film now. People still do it, but why?
Yeah.
And the same reasons will exist for 35.
Artistic reasons,
That's
surely.
right. Yes.
James, we should all keep an eye on your blog for updates about film and cinema developments in Australia. CineTechGeek.com, is that the one?
That's the one, yeah.
CineTechGeek.com. Thank you very much
Thanks
for joining us
coming in.
tonight.
It's been great.
And thank you very much.
You're listening to Tech Talk Radio.